Hey, I'm flagging you down. I'm waving you down this way. If I had the things right this way, let's go over here. Not that way. Right here. Line them up. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It's the Friday after Christmas. Hope everybody had an amazing Christmas, amazing holidays, whatever you celebrate. Now we are back for another BizBuzz Live. And today we're just going to do a little recap. This is the last BizBuzz Live for 2025. Look at that. Look at that rhyme. Last BizBuzz Live for 2025. So we're going to dive in to some things that we've been putting out over on our LinkedIn. Right now we're live on LinkedIn and YouTube, but we've been putting out some polls all year on our LinkedIn. We're just going to go over a couple of them so we can talk about what the people are talking about and what the people are feeling. So stick around. Right, y'all. What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of BizBuzz Live. I'm your host, Chris Muzan, your financial coach, financial strategist, helping you through all things finance. And we're back with another opportunity to talk about money. Those of you that haven't been following along in 2025, man, we're going on 2 years of the show, right? This started back in 2023, 24. My goodness, I don't know. But if you haven't been following along, the reason why I chose to start the show and really just jump on live here on LinkedIn and YouTube every single Friday is to talk about this piece of the financial space that I don't think gets enough attention. So again, the thesis here, if we sit down and talk to a professional about our finances, that's all I've been doing, again, for the past 12, 13 years, is helping educate people financially. And one of the things that I've noticed is, regardless of where people are when they come to have a conversation with me, whether they think they just want to talk about their retirement, or they just want to talk about their insurance, or they just need help with their debt, or they're trying to figure out something for their estate plan, or them getting their kids to college, or just figuring out, what interest rate they need on a car, all the financial things, no matter what, inevitably the conversation comes back to cash flow. How much comes in and how much goes out on a monthly basis for you? How much is coming in from whatever you choose, however you choose to make money, whether it be your job, your full-time job, whether you're a part of the gig economy, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're just piecing it together and figuring it out, selling something online, doesn't matter, right? Trying to figure out exactly what's coming in for people. And then also on the other side, what's going out for people. Hold on. Sometimes I got to shut down some things so that my internet works properly over here. We don't get the best Wi-Fi in my town. But either way, we're here. I see myself being a little slow, so I shut down some of that. Anyways, where did I leave off? Yeah, so inevitably what comes in and what goes out is really what's important. What's coming in, what's going out. That's what's important, right? And so a lot of times we're having these conversations about what's going out. We're having the conversations about where the money is flowing to, what budgeting apps are we using, how do we look at our bank statements and bank accounts, credit card accounts, those things. But we don't often have the conversation around how money comes into our life. How do we make money? How do we bring it in? And that question, I think, needs to get brought up a little bit more in our financial talks, especially moving into 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, with the rise of AI, with all of the layoffs that we saw in 2025, by all the sectors that are changing, women being out of the workforce. There's so many different variables here, but all of them, in my opinion, are leading us to a place where we need to redesign how we make income. We need to redesign how people choose to make income. We used to think it was the go to school, get some higher education, get a good job, work at that job for a long time, and that's going to pay for your lifestyle. But that's not really what's panning out for most people. One job isn't cutting it. The job that they are getting with their degree isn't cutting it. So there need to be some changes and some things that need to happen. So we're watching these things start to unfold. But as we head into a brand new year, we need to have more creative ways and more common sense ways of how to go off and make money. That's why we started the show. So we can start talking about the industries. What industries should you be looking at? What industries should you not be looking at? Where are people getting laid off? Where are people being hired? What's the next up and coming labor markets? Where can you wedge yourself in so that you can continue to make income for you and your family moving forward, y'all? That's the game. And so if the way that you've been doing it hasn't been working, it's okay. It's not working for many people. So we just need to figure out a different plan. We need to figure out a different way to go about it. And I'm here to be able to help you with some of those things today because it's the last BizBuzz of 2025. I was gonna dive into some of the polls that we had taken over the course of this year. I'm only gonna highlight a few of them. We drop a new poll probably 2 a week or so here on LinkedIn. One, because I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. Anyone that actually knows me, that gets a chance to spend some time with me, knows that like I really ask a lot of questions because I'm genuinely curious about what people are going through, how people think about things. I know that this life is just about perspective. And so if we can get a different perspective on things, I think it helps. I need clip this part, but I think I should bring back our perspective podcast. Me and my buddy Terrell had a perspective podcast that we did a few years back, and I think we should bring it back out. Why? Because we all need that different perspective to help us be able to shift and really do the things that we want to do. So, that being said, I wanted to share with you some of the perspectives of things that we've gotten over the course of 2025, a couple questions that we kind of asked so that we just get a feel, right? Get a feel for kind of what's happening, what people are thinking about out there. So I'm going to start with a couple of these and we'll kind of riff on them for a little bit and see what your thoughts are. By the way, this is a good opportunity, y'all, for you to drop some comments. Drop your own comments down. Drop your own questions down here so you could take a look at it, right? But we pulled these off of some of our earlier LinkedIn things. So this one says, how do you feel about the economy over the next 12 months? So we took this in the earlier part of the year and 50% of people said concerned. 25% of people said very worried. So 75% of people said concerned or very worried about the economy over the next 12 months. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on how do you feel about the economy? How do you feel about it with all the things that you know and maybe the things that you don't know? And this does not have to be, again, a political debate or a political topic. It's really more about like, how do you feel personally in your family? Are you guys feeling more scarce? Are you guys feeling more abundant? Are things becoming easier for you in your financial life, in your health life, in your relationships? Are things becoming easier, or is there more tension? Is there more tension towards what the possibilities are for the future? Does your family have a lot of hope for the future? Or do you just feel like the economy is, putting you in a bad position, that there's no job opportunities, that work is not fulfilling to you, that your kids are not getting educated, that gas prices are high, food prices are high, that we're going to go to war. Like, how do you think about the economy, and how does this play in to your everyday, how you handle money, how you think about bringing in money? If only a quarter of the people feel optimistic about the economy, what do you feel optimistic about for that quarter of people? Because again, the masses aren't always right, right? We know these things. The masses don't always have their pulse on where we're headed. Fear runs a lot of what the masses think. The media that we see is very fear-based. So this doesn't necessarily mean that, our economy actually is in a bad spot. Some people can believe it is, right? But how do you feel about where it's at is what matters, because whatever we focus on or how we think about things, I started this by talking about perspective. How the perspective you have on things will shape how you act towards them. So if you're concerned, if you are very worried about the economy, you will act differently than the person that's optimistic about the economy. If you're optimistic, what are you optimistic about? These are the questions, y'all. These are the things that I'm curious about for you. I don't know that, again, there's no right or wrong answer. That's why we took these polls, because we want to get a pulse of what you guys on LinkedIn are feeling and thinking about. But if most people are concerned and worried about the economy over the next 12 months, the question is, well, then what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? If you are concerned, if you are worried about the economy, what are you going to do? What control are you going to take? What can you do to bring in more money? What can you do? Because money will likely get you above any of the things you're concerned about. I don't know all the things you're concerned about, but let me just tell you, a majority of the things you are concerned about can be solved, at least for you and your family, with an increased cash flow, with having more money. Now, money does not bring happiness. Again, we know this. Money is just a tool. It's just a tool. It's neutral. It has no feelings. It has nothing towards it but the energy you give towards it. Money put in someone's hands that is already not a good person, that is immoral, that does not do things that are legal or ethical. Money put in that person's hands will just amplify that. Money put in the hands of someone that is moral and ethical and kind and caring and generous, it'll do more things for that person as well. It doesn't change who you are. It just amplifies who you are. It's a tool to give you options. So if the things you're worried about, if you're worried about the economy, the things you're worried about, if you had more options, if you're worried about healthcare, what if you had more options to get better healthcare? If you're worried about food prices, what if you had more options to get better food? If you're worried about your child's education, what if you had more options to get them educated? What if you think that here in the United States, this isn't the place you want to be anymore because you're concerned about the outlook? Well, if you had more options, aka more money, you'd be able to move. You'd be able to get out of the country. You'd be able to change your lifestyle. So money typically answers a lot of these things. If you are concerned or are worried about the economy, again, more of a reason why you should be thinking about making more money. All right. Here's another question that had popped up that I thought was very interesting to look at. It said here, what would you do if you weren't afraid of failing? Like if you weren't afraid to fail, if you knew that like you couldn't failure wasn't an option. Again, we might need a perspective shift on how we think about failure in general. Failure leads to success. The only way to really fail is to quit and give up and stop. But if you just keep going and you just not getting it right, that's just learning and growing. That's my perspective. But we posed this question out here that said, what would you do if you weren't worried about failing? Well, the majority of people, 58% of people said, I'd start my own business. 8% of people said they'd switch industries if they weren't afraid of failing. They'd switch industries. A quarter of the people said they take a sabbatical. I, and then another 8% said they pursue a passion project. So let's start with the 25% of people that said they take a sabbatical. So again, the question is, what would you do if you were worried about failing? If you thought you wouldn't fail, you would just go take time away. Well, why not go do that now? Again, I'm genuinely curious because I don't know all the people that responded to these polls. So here on LinkedIn, would love it if you got a chance to go back in and answer some of these questions for me, or drop it down here in the chat, or in the comments of this live. But again, I'm curious, why would the first thing, if you think if you take a sabbatical, you'll fail? You think like currently, if you just chose to, I mean, I guess if you have a job and like they're not going to give you extended time off, yeah, you would have to go get another job likely. But what about taking a sabbatical, taking a rest period, taking a rest 3 weeks or a month? Cause you to fail. Maybe you would fail in your financial life. Not sure. But I don't know that taking a sabbatical is equates to failing. But again, I'd love to hear from the people. Here's the big one: switching industries and starting your own business, pursuing a passion project. They're all kind of similar in doing something different than what you're doing now. If you weren't worried about failing, you would do something different than you're doing now. That's basically what this is saying. Over 75% of people say that if they had no concern about whatever failing looks like to them, they would switch industries, do something that they're more passionate about, or start their own business. What is stopping you from starting your own business now? That's a question for you. What's stopping you from starting your own business now? Do you really have the fear of failing? Do you really have the fear of your whole life crumbling and everything you built going to nothing? If you have that fear, again, it might be time for a different perspective on things, because whatever you built to get to this point, you can build again. You have the knowledge, you have the skill set, you have the resources. Whatever you built right now, you can build again. If you're connected in your faith life, then you know your creator, God, helped you build what you have now, so that if you don't have it, you can still get it back because you still have God. But are we letting these fears control us, y'all? I don't know. But if you're one of those people that's like, man, I should start a business. 2026 is right around the corner. Let's make this the year that you actually go do those things. Let's make this the year that you don't just sit back and say, man, I wish I could. If I couldn't fail, if I didn't fail, if I didn't have all this fear, then maybe I'd go do it. No. Let's go do it now. Let's go do it now. Right? I think that's really important. This was one that I was really interested in talking about. I was really interested when I put this poll out to see what people said, specifically because as I sit down with tons of people, right? I sit down with hundreds of people and talk about kind of where they're going in life and all the things. When I sit down and have these conversations with people, I think people are a little delusional about how much they actually work or how hard they actually work. I've been blessed. My wife and I have been blessed, right? We haven't had a job in a very long time. And so we've been on this entrepreneurial side where we still work our 12, 14, 15, 16-hour days. Like, that is not lost on us. And I believe when I would help a lot of people, and I still do, have the conversation, helping a lot of people go from that employee side to the entrepreneur side. I really believe it's important that we need guidance. We have guidance on how to go to school and do the education thing and get good grades and fill out FAFSA and put us in a position to fill out an application for college and pick the right college and have career counselors and guidance counselors. And then, people that send us to the military and all this stuff. Like, we have very good guidance on that side. When you want to be an entrepreneur, when you know that other side is not for you, and you just want to go develop something, build something, chase your dreams, passion projects, whatever they are, we don't have enough guidance on that side. We don't have enough people that have actually been down the road, that come back, that try to help other people get there. So I try to do that for some. And a lot of the conversations that I have, people at their job believe that they work harder than they actually do. Again, I don't say that to offend, because some of you work really extremely, extremely hard. But I'll tell you, if you feel like you work really hard at your job, if you do, there's two things that are popping up in my mind right now. One, if you feel like you work really hard at your job, the way to make a living is working twice as hard on yourself as you do on your job. That's the way to get to the life that you don't need a break from. That's a Jim Rohn quote. He would say, work twice as hard on yourself as you do on your job. So if you already feel like you're working hard on your job, you should be working twice as hard on yourself in your personal development, reading books and listening to audios and getting around new information and learning and growing about you, the inside, right? The interpersonal side, the emotional side of you. You got to learn how to handle that, manage that. That's one thing that came up for me. The other thing that came up for me is, for those of you that do believe you work really, really hard at your job, if you did that for yourself, you would make quadruple the amount of money. If that's what you believe. If you believe you go above and beyond and you worked really, really hard at your job, you make a great entrepreneur. Here's something I would always teach, and I just want to encourage y'all to understand that it's not easier to be an entrepreneur than it is to have a job. Clip this. It's not easier to be an entrepreneur than it is to work a job, because at least at a job, you're kind of told when to be there, what to do, what the work is, all of those things. Now, you might go above and beyond. You might work a lot at your job. That's fine. But as an entrepreneur, you're 24 hours or you're 24 hours. And no one tells you what to do. So you have to figure out not only what to do, but then you get to control how long you do it. And so that's why 14, 15, 16, 17-hour days are nothing to an entrepreneur after a while, because it's just how we operate. We don't have the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. When I'm off, I don't think about anything or do anything. So if you really are working, going above and beyond at your job, at your place of employment, you would be ripe once you found the thing to do it for yourself. Because going above and beyond for yourself and your own goals and your own dreams and your family is what allows you to take your life to the place that you want it to go. But this poll that we had dropped said, which one of these best describes your work ethic for you, right, at your job? We put, I go above and beyond every day. I do enough not to get fired. I work it just as hard as my other coworkers do. I do more than I'm paid for. Now, again, the results of this post, the results of this poll, 77%, almost 78% of people said they either do more than what they're paid for or they go above and beyond every day. Guys, let me just pull this down really quickly because I'm curious. Do you think that's delusional? Do you think that most, because this is saying, and again, I'm curious to hear the perspective. Do most employees go above and beyond every day in their tasks and they do more than what they're paid for? I can see the do more than what they're paid for because that's just the nature of the job, right? I feel like the job forces you to do more than what they pay you to do. But going above and beyond is a special type of worker. My assumption was that most workers would have fallen in the other side of the I do enough to not get fired and I work just as hard as my coworkers. If I see my coworker on the phone, after a while, I'm going to get on my phone. If we're all doing just enough work so that the boss doesn't pick out or single one of us out, that's enough. If I can fly under the radar long enough so my work doesn't have to stand out, but I also just get done what I need to get done, that works for me. But I go above and beyond, and I do more than what I'm paid for. If that's you, you might be also one of those people that needs to start their own business. If you're not afraid to fail, if you're not afraid to try, if you're not afraid to learn, if you're not afraid to get yourself uncomfortable and put yourself in an uncomfortable position so you can learn and grow, and you do more than what you are paid for, and you go above and beyond, you're probably ripe for figuring out how to start something for yourself in 2026. You're probably ripe for figuring out how to create the life that you want in 2026. It's been too long, y'all. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to wait for it. Here's the last one I'm going to give you guys today, because this one was also very interesting. It said, if LinkedIn could magically give you one resource today, what would it be? We're live here on LinkedIn. We're live right here on LinkedIn. So if you were here on LinkedIn and you got a chance for LinkedIn to magically give you one of these resources, what would you want? 45% of people said a mentor. 36% of people said a new client. 9% said a better time management tools, and 9% said a network to keep me on track. You're looking for people. 90% of these answers are you're looking for a person. You're looking for a person. A mentor, someone that can help guide you down the path. Some of you need a mentor. Most of you need mentors. Most of you need someone that can help you go down the path of the journey that you're headed down. Whether that's a mentor in your business life, whether that's a mentor in learning how to get to the life you want, becoming an entrepreneur. You need a mentor. You need a person to help you. How do you find a mentor, by the way? Well, you have to be vulnerable. You have to give in order to get. I learned this because I've had some great mentors in my life. I'm a mentor to some. So I understand the mentor-mentee relationship. The mentee has to give in order to get. The mentor always wants to share, always wants to help, but we only want to help the people that want to help themselves. If your mentor says, hey, this is something you should do, how quickly do you go do it? Or do you run it by 5 other people? That's not real mentorship. That's just you wanting to get advice, get information. That's different. Being a mentor, you respect that person. You respect their time. You respect their knowledge. They're further along. You want what they have. You admire a certain aspect of them or their career or whatever the case is. And you want to do the things that they've done. So when they give you instruction, you have to move at the speed of instruction. That's being a good mentee. Taking an interest in what the mentor needs, giving to them, adding value to them. What does that mentor need? What do they need in their day-to-day? What do they can you help them with something you have? They might not pay you money for it, but you're going to get time. You're going to get insight and wisdom in exchange for whatever value you bring to the table. And then once that mentor helps you through some things, do you come back and help them out? So if you want a mentor, what you want LinkedIn to magically give you a mentor, LinkedIn has millions of people on it. Maybe you should go find your mentor. You should go find some people that are doing the things you want to do and add value to their life and help them achieve what they want so that they can help you achieve what you want. If you want a new client, we see that all the time on LinkedIn. Everybody wants a new client, right? Everybody is selling you something inside of your DM. Everyone is selling you something inside of your private messages. By the way, in 2026, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get better with the private messages. We got to get better. Stop letting chat bots. Stop. Let me drop this so y'all can see me. Stop letting the chat bots send messages for you. Stop automating your messages. Stop sending paragraph long messages that have a link at the bottom that to for your discovery call. I'm sure some of you that run the numbers, that works a lot for you here on LinkedIn. But for the majority, the average person, it doesn't work. By the way, if you ever get a DM from me or a message from me, just know that's me. That's me. I won't, that's not a chat bot. That's not, you know, some AI automation that's just sending out a bunch of stuff for lead gen. I believe in the relationship. I believe in sending the message to get to know people. I'll send you a voice note. We'll jump on Zoom. We'll jump on a phone call. It doesn't matter. I want you to know that that's me. So if that's you trying to get a new client on LinkedIn, maybe finding some different ways, because I don't think your spammy messages are working anymore. They at least don't work for me. Maybe they do work for some that's out there. Either way. All right. So as we wrap this up, again, you want a mentor, you want a new client, you need some better time management skills. Yeah, LinkedIn could help with that. Really, your personal growth, personal development helps with that. And you need a network of people. That's what you want. You want a network of people. You're on the right path. You're on the right platform. Maybe you have to do something new in 2026 to help you achieve those things. Maybe you need to do something new in 2026 to help you get yourself in a position to get a mentor, to get a new client, to get a network of people. Maybe you need to host an event. Maybe you need to go to an event. Likely you need to do something outside of your comfort zone, something that you have not yet done yet. You need to get into new rooms. You need to think about your network a little bit differently. Maybe that'll help you get to the life that you want. Ladies and gentlemen, 2025 has been a great year. It's all your perspective, right? It's just your perspective. Somebody else out there is like, what are you talking about? It hasn't been a great year. It's your perspective. Your perspective of I think it was a great year. Lots of changes. The changes allow us to learn and grow, help us become the man or woman we need to be, build the capacity to do all the things we want to do. As we head into 2026, this show, my message to you, my encouragement to you will remain the same. You need to find ways to make more money. You need to bring in new income. You need to shake new hands. You need to get into new relationships. You need to figure out new business models. You need to figure out new mediums and ways to make money. You need to dive into your learning. You need to listen to better things that are helping you get better ideas of how you go off and build the life that you want. 2026 will be a year you have to hear me closely. 2026 will be a year where you have to diversify your income. Say that again. 2026 will be a year where you have to diversify your income. You have to find a way to bring in different streams of income, more money than you're bringing in now. The inflation is going to get worse. All these things. We looked at that poll for, do you feel optimistic about the economy? Most people don't. Well, the way you get above that is to actually go off and create something that brings you more of the tools you need to get options. Said another way, bring you more money so that you have more options of what to do, more resources. That's what 2026 is going to bring you, ladies and gentlemen. My encouragement for all of you is that you start thinking about this stuff now. Last year, y'all, we've been doing this for a while, right? In the beginning, Q1 of 2025 was when we had all of Doge and all of people getting laid off and the federal government and all the stuff. What do you think is going to happen the first quarter of 2026? If it's just a repeat, if it's just a cycle of more layoffs, of more closures, of more shutdowns, of all the things, what are you doing to put yourself in a position so that that doesn't affect you? My encouragement for all of you is to right now start to pay attention to how you can go off and bring in more income. Cash flow has two parts, what comes in and what goes out. If you're monitoring what goes out, that's great. Now let's spend 2026 focusing on what's coming in. Let's talk about the ideas that we have and how do we get them off the ground? How do we get a network of people that can support? How do we get the resources to be able to build things? That's what our conversation should be like in 2026. And it's going to help us get to the life that we don't need a break from, y'all. Check me out on all the different platforms, whether you're watching here on LinkedIn and YouTube, or you check me out over on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or any of those other places. But let's have some conversations about how to get our income to the next level and how to grow our financial life. Ladies and gentlemen, 2025 was a great year. I pray that it's great for you. Happy New Year to all of you. We'll be back here in 2026 for another Biz Buzz Live. Until next